Hey, I'm Pascal from Orangepixel and welcome to another video. And yes, I'm still enjoying my new chair. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, check last week's video. This week's video's topic is pretty much gonna be up to my Discord channel. Yeah, I had no idea of my own. So I asked in the Discord what kind of topic should we do for next week's video. This week's video, which as I'm recording this is next week's video, but yeah, you get it, right? Okay, a couple of interesting ideas came onto the Discord, already browsed them, and let's just go through them one by one and see which one we pick. And I have a kind of idea what I want to do, so let's just go through them. All right, let's move up the Discord a little bit. I asked it over here. Topic, how to avoid workload or burnout. Every dev has it. Interesting topic. Not sure if I'm the guy that should be talking about it. How to kill your darlings by looking back at previous games where you killed features. Yeah, also interesting, but as I already mentioned to Ragoshi, I'm not really sure if I actually remember the features that I killed from certain projects, because eventually they didn't end up in the game. So I kind of forgot most of that. Postmortem. Yeah, my own idea. A postmortem on Residual. I think I'm gonna do that one in a few weeks time. I have to figure out and sort out actually the revenue it made and write down the good things and the bad things. I'm gonna do a post-mortem pretty soon in the coming weeks. And this one I think is gonna be the one from Air Demon. Contrast between the best and the worst year as an indie developer. What happened in the worst year? Did you consider just giving up? Yeah. I think this is the one topic that we're gonna use for this video. Okay, so topic is picked. Let's see what my worst year was, and not just financially, but just in general, working on games, which year was pretty much terrible, and my best year. And let's see where the differences are and answer some questions. So I think we got a topic. Intro. Going through my spreadsheet where I pretty much write down all the revenue that comes in and goes out. So I have since 2004 an overview how every year went. Now obviously I'm not gonna go with the first couple of years. Orangepixel just started. We're talking about like a couple of €100 in the whole year. But yeah, you had to start somewhere. So let's skip a little bit to like let's see, good years. This was a good one. And I can't show all these numbers. I'm very open on this channel, but there's just so much stuff there. Yeah, I'm not gonna share everything. There's a lot. And if you've been here for longer than, well, last couple of months, so before December, every year I do a overview of how my year was. And I usually talk about the numbers. How much did I make each year? And I have a limit or a goal that I want to reach. That's 50K a year. Everything below that will make it hard for me and my wife to live from game development or my job. Everything above that is pretty much just working for a lot of extra taxes that you're paying. There is a limit. I could like 60K is probably still fine, and 70K as well. And of course having a lot more isn't really the worst thing that happens, but it's just also I'd rather push all that money to the next year and then work a little bit less and also pay less taxes, because it's just I'm not working for everybody else. I'm working for myself, and if I didn't have to work for money, I probably wouldn't be working for money, or maybe just make games but just give them away for free. So my goal every year is about 50K, and here we have a year that I went far below that, and still early years. We're talking about a decade ago. There we go. This 2013 was a pretty good year. I remember because we had Gunslugs and Heroes of Loot. I talked about that on the channel many times. That's a pretty good year. 16 was a very good year. I'm not sure why. And that's going to be the hard part of this. All right, just open up here. 2016, I made 80K. And I'm just checking why and how. Because I'm not seeing any weird numbers. I think it's just good sales on everything, on all platforms, on mobile. 2016 was Heroes of Loot 2 and Space Grunts just got released, and Gunslugs 2 in January 2015. All right, so I just released a lot of games, and I think Space Grunts had a feature on the iOS App Store. And in those days, those features were very interesting to have because it meant a lot of money. I mean, 11,000 for just a month. Let's make that clear. That's 11K for 1 month of App Store sales. Those days are pretty much gone on premium games. So 2016 was a pretty good year. 2017, well over the thing we wanted, but not exceptionally. 2008, 2019, I know this was a terrible year. 2019, I made 27K for the whole year. That's like half that I want to make. And I think we just got our worst year, 2021, very well, but that was also a deal with a publisher for Residual and all that stuff. This year is also going very well. Yeah, let's look at 2019 as one of my worst years. I remember that year vaguely, and I remember the issue and the problems I had there. I think, and one of the best year is probably then 2016 that I just mentioned, Space Grunts getting released. So those are the 2 years we're going to talk about. 2016, one of my better years, and 2019, my worst year. And like, I mean, yeah, my worst year. All right, so in 2018, I had released Ashworld, late 2017, which did very well. I got a feature on the App Store and on Google Play. PC version did decent, and I released Sir Questionnaire on the App Store, which also had a great feature on the App Store. I remember that. Got released on every platform, but had a great feature on the App Store. So 2018 was a pretty good year, which led me into 2019, where I had to come up with the next game. And this is often a struggle if you have no ideas, or you just, I mean, it's a full-time job, and you can't just, unless you make a hit game, you can take all the time you want. But if you have no hit games, just decently or well-selling games, you need to get on with the next game. You need to have something done. And I think even if you had a hit game, like maybe not making millions, but 100,000 to 300,000-400,000, even at that point, you need to start thinking about your next game, because not every game project you start becomes a actual game. Or at some point you might think, this idea was great, but now that I have it up and running, it's not really that great, and I've been wasting my time. I need to come up with something else. That year I started on Gunslugs 3 in 2019, and I think I went through different phases of development. First, it was just gonna be an action game like the original Gunslugs, just prettier and more modern and more features. And then it slowly pivoted to, well, this is kind of boring, it's the same again. And at some point as a developer, you then you figure that you can't just rehash your old projects. You can't just give people the same thing again. Can you? I honestly think you can, but in your brain somewhere, you know you need to come up with something different or something else. So I tried to change it into something more roguelike, tactics and stealth, and I meshed it up into something that, I mean, it's a good game, but, and I mean, it ends up in being an interesting platformer for sure, but it wasn't interesting enough. It's a platformer, and the App Store was also changing at that point. Premium games were becoming less and less. Features on the App Store became less and less. Already noticed that with Sir Questionnaire. It got featured, it did very well. And Gunslugs, I don't think it got featured, but if it did, it didn't do a lot. It pretty much died on release, and it was, I think, the only game I released in 2019. I've been working on it too long, wasn't clear on it, and it failed somewhat miserably. So yeah, that kind of explains the low revenue I made that year. So the year after that, I came with Space Grunts 2, I came with Snake Core, and I think I started work on Residual. And we're gonna do postmortem on Residual in a few weeks from now, which did very well. Kickstarter, publisher deal, Steam, Switch, mobile, it was everywhere, and it did pretty well. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, as that video is gonna be interesting. 2019 was like terrible year, and that brings me to 2016, one of the better years. 80.7K made that year, so that's way above, well, my limit for every year. I think, as I just mentioned, most of that came from Space Grunts. Pretty sure that Space Grunts got released, a turn-based game that can be played at arcade-like speed if you want to. I think it's a unique one. Still, I haven't seen it being done by other games in this genre, and I'm gonna do it again with Space Grunt 3, which is on my list of things to start once these two games that I'm working on now are done. Space Grunt did pretty well. I think this came off the back. 2015 was a pretty good year. 2016 App Store features, if you got in, they were just gold pretty much. Like I said, 11,000. Here we had 8,600 in 1 month, and then that same year we had 11,000 in a month. It pretty much quickly added up. However, those days are gone. I think I mentioned it before. Premium games on mobile just got pushed out completely by free games. There are just so many free games with in-app payments or advertising and stuff that premium games, even though they are still being made and they can still make money, they're not doing as much anymore because most players are younger, have less income or money to spend on games, and they have just like a basket full of free games, and then there's this one title that costs money. Yeah, they're gonna dive into that basket full of free games, obviously. I hope this will never happen to PC games or console games. I think on consoles we are safe because obviously Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft want to keep making money, but they're pushing out premium games with their subscription models a little bit. So I'm not sure if that's a good thing. But yeah, back in those days doing premium mobile games, and this is the reason why I did so many mobile games first, and only in 2015 I started doing PC games. So this was the first year I actually had games on PC, and Space Grunts was one of my first PC first kind of releases where I really made sure the interface and everything was designed for PC. And then I did so many mobile games, it was pretty easy to make it mobile friendly. So that's one of my better years. Well, not my best years revenue wise, but yeah, this year pretty much breezed on. And after Space Guns, I came up with Ashworld. I think that same year, or it got released a year later, or maybe 2 years later. I think 1 year later. But I was just on a roll with good game ideas, right time, right game idea, and having Apple features, which helped a lot. Without those features, it would have probably been like 20, maybe 25k less. So I'm very glad I got those features. All right, so worst year, best year. Now the question, what did you learn from both those years? All right, good question. Let's see if we can dig into that one. What happened in the worst year was probably my own fault. Not having a clear direction for the game I was planning on making or try to make, or not prepared enough for what I was trying to create. Then creating Gunslugs, and halfway in, like a couple of months into development, and it was close to being done. It was a fun platformer, a lot like the first part, but I just didn't think it was enough to offer to players, which is, yeah, on one hand, and I think that's maybe one of the mistakes in my head. I was convinced I had to come up with something new, something different. Maybe Gunslugs 3 was still in that same mold. But I mean, I have done top-down dungeon crawlers, I have done an open world game, I have turn-based Space Grunts-like games, I have a card deck battling game, Space Grunts 2, platformers, shooters. I did a lot of different genres already, and I shouldn't have listened to my weird brain telling me that I had to come up with new stuff. I should have just finished the game, release it, and start work on the next game. And maybe planned it a little bit more and a little bit better, made sure that the game was done when it was supposed to be done and released, and it just took too much time. That's pretty much the problem. And right now, ironically, I'm working on Regulator City, which is taking also way too much time. But that's a little bit of a different situation. It had funding. I got another game in the making that's taking a lot less time and will probably release before I release Regulated City, so that I can focus more on molding that game. I'm more experienced since then, so I'm confident that this time Regulated City will work out. It's a different situation money-wise and revenue-wise. But back in 2019, my focus for what that game was supposed to be and when it was released, and it just wasn't good enough, and I wasn't focused enough, and I wasn't. It also just sold pretty bad, and I think I was done with it and just pushed it out, and that was it. So I think that's the best lesson learned from that terrible year. And the lesson learned for the best year, or probably all the best years, is that you need some way. You need help. You need platform help, contacts, a little bit of luck. Even though people say you make your own luck, honestly, of course, I'm writing and emailing Apple and hoping they will feature Space Grunts that just got released. But then you still need to have that little bit of luck that they actually pick it up, feature it on the front page at the right time where a lot of people want to buy a new game and a lot of people enjoy that game. So there is a little bit of luck involved there, but also obviously you need to have those contacts. Just releasing a game on your own like that, dumping it on the internet, is not going to do it. You need to work and figure out how to get some extra exposure for your game. And also for Space Grunts, I was very clear on what the game was going to be. It was going to be a roguelike in a sci-fi setting. I was very clear on that from the start. It was going to be a turn-based game. Just the side features of having a very fast turn-based or like arcadey type of gameplay possible. That was added to it, or that's just how I enjoy my games. But everything else was very clear. I read a lot about what people like in roguelike. So procedural generated levels, alternate levels or secret areas that you can find, certain things that change for every game you play. Just pretty much everything that has to go into a roguelike, I put it into Space Grunts, and I had a lot of fun making it and a lot of fun developing it. And I think it was done pretty quickly, 8 months, 9 months, and then making that much money, very much worth it. So yeah, just try to be clear on what your game is gonna be. I think that's the biggest lesson I learned that year, and probably in all the years that went pretty well. Like now I'm working on Gauntlet of Power. That game was also created in such a short time because I was very clear what I wanted to make. Regulated City is actually an example of how it shouldn't be done. I was clear on one feature, but not on the full game and what it was supposed to be. But now that's all on the right track. I know what it's going to be, and I know what it is, and it's pretty cool. But it took too long to get to that point. And with Gunslugs, I had no backup, I had no investment, I had nothing. So pretty much when that game was done and released, it bombed, it tanked, and I was pretty much I wasn't in the happiest of moods that year and the year after, I can tell you that. But it all it also pushed me to work a little bit harder and try to avoid getting back in that situation. So I guess there is a lesson learned there, and from there on, the years after 2020, these can all be found on the channel actually, because I was doing YouTube videos yearly by then. So 51, 85, 64, and this year is also pretty well. So I think it's all back on track after that game. But to be honest, every year I fear for another Gunslugs event. And that's also the reason I have been staying away from doing a new Gunslugs. I think I really want to dig back into that world, but I'm afraid it's not going to be interesting enough, or just bombs like Gunslugs Rogue Tactics did. But every year I have that little terror feeling of, let's avoid another Gunslugs 3. Okay, and that's the end of this video. Lots of information there, lots of numbers and figures. I'm not sure this was interesting for everybody, but it was a different type of video, and I like to create content like that for this channel, because I also know a lot of other developer YouTubers cannot do that. They don't have so many numbers and information, and some of them barely released games. So that's the actual added value I can give you on this channel. I'm going to do a post-mortem about Residual. I just have to dig up all the numbers. I'm going to give you all the revenue made from it, and what went well, what went wrong, and the conclusion, I think. Something like that. So that video is gonna come pretty soon. December is usually a good YouTube month to create videos like that because you get more revenue from ads. So that video is gonna come very soon. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you have great topic ideas for videos, drop by the Discord, let me know, or drop them in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and I will see you. Well, I will not see. Why do I say that? I will not see you next week, but hopefully you will see me next week. Weird sentence. All right. Bye.